Algorithm. This is the Uplift. The Uplift is all about uncovering deeper realities that hang on. Uncovering deeper realities that influence our thoughts, our feelings, and our choices in our everyday lives. So we are talking about this week. We're talking about the familiarity factor, and we're talking about how it does work in regards to our consciousness as well as our unconscious, right? Which is underneath, which is the brain and the nervous system, talking about it from the systemic point of view. All right, so we are talking about that this week. We've been discussing about how the fact that familiarity is really about predictability. Familiarity is really about predictability because it's about that survival factor, right? And so we discussed it that way. We also had discussed the fact that it's also it feels right because what's being filtered to you is going to support that familiarity, right? What's being filtered to you is going to support that familiarity. It literally is filtering information or data that you are going to require to make your choices. But if you are not getting the information to where it is not being filtered right, well, then it's very hard in order to make a choice that is going to be different than the information that you're receiving, right? So we realized that on Tuesday. Now, Wednesday, we utilize that as a day to be able to show how we actually work through our neurosystem, right? So we look at it from the neuroscience, and we had a diagram that we showed how things worked. And there's two distinct different patterns. There's two distinct different paths. One is your survival center. The other is your intentional path. And so we showed how it works within the brain and the nervous system, and the actual process that the brain will actually do. Wonderful to see you, Jules. Wonderful to see you, Shy Girl. Wonderful to see you, Lisa Jones. Wonderful to see you this morning. All right, so what we're doing is that we are bringing up these deeper realities. We're bringing up these deeper realities that affect our everyday lives through our thoughts, our feelings, and our choices, right? And so we're doing that so as to be able to bring awareness and have you notice things to be different than what it is that you're familiar to. And it's not to be judgmental in any way. It's not to say, oh, you know, you are doing things wrong, or, you should have known better, or anything like that. I know enough to know that when we are making those choices, that we are literally being fed certain pieces. We're being fed certain pieces. Everything's being filtered out. Val, good morning. Laura, good morning. So everything is being filtered out. So literally, the nervous system is filtering to you what feels familiar, right? That familiar path, to the point where you're almost on autopilot. Now, when we talked about it from before this week, a lot of people kind of looked at it and said, well, geez, like my brain works against me. Okay, I understand why it is that you may feel that, but that's not necessarily the case. It's not working against you. In fact, what it is doing is that it is valuing you to the utmost. It's valuing you to the utmost because what it's doing is it's ensuring that you survive. That's really what it's doing. It has one purpose. That one purpose is to ensure that you survive. Now, is there a second piece to that? Yes, living, experiencing life, right? Experiencing life as it's meant to be, right? That doesn't mean that everything's going to go perfect by any means, but experiencing life is definitely second. Third is connection. As human beings, we do not do well if we do not have connection. if we don't have common ground, if we don't have connection, not only common ground, but also connection in those who are going to push us, those who are going to stretch us away from what is familiar. It's very, very important in our system because it it's where, if you notice, when you find somebody who happens to be introverted, or when you find somebody who happens to be, you know, bedridden or housebound, whatever that is, you'll find somebody who's going in the box rather than coming out of the box. They're going in the box because they constantly are seeing what's familiar. They're developing patterns of which feel very natural to them. Right? And so what we're doing is that we are shedding light. We're shedding light and giving notice to how things really work. Something that isn't often discussed in everyday conversation. And so that's why it is that we do this on the Uplift, so as to make sure that you're aware. Because I fully believe the clearer that you understand how things go, and the clearer that you understand and see how things really are, the more intentional that you can be, because your capacity has grown, and your growth and your certainty is growing, so as to then give you the power to have the intentional choice. Right? I've always said, I do not tell people what to do. I simply lead until they learn that they have a choice. I lead till they learn that they have a choice. I'm not somebody who's going to sit there and tell them this is what it is that you need to do. I'm going to lead them so that they see that they have a choice to do what it is that they need to do. All right? All right. So this is what we're doing. Algorithm. Tony Lynn, wonderful to see you this morning. Mercedes, wonderful to see you this morning. Ashley, wonderful to see you this morning. Shano, great to see you. All right. So here's the deal. We are going to discuss familiarity, and we've been discussing it, and we're going to put it into a different frame of mind. We're going to put it into a different frame of mind. So let's get started. All right. So, folks, this is the Uplift. I'm your host, Dutch Venus. Listen, people do not come here for what it is that they already know. No, instead, they come here for the moment, because the moment is where things start to make sense. All right. That's the Uplift. Real growth, clear direction, expanding what's possible for you. All right. So this is where it is that I'm going to have to tell you, I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a medical professional in any kind, right? What I do is I utilize my own personal experiences that I have gone through. I've developed a language that makes me understand things a little bit different, and that language seems to relate to a lot of people, and seems to relate to a lot of people and how it is that they live their life. I also have had a professional career as a medical researcher, both in the medical health as well as the mental health realm. I've done that for over 20 plus years. And each and every day I learn something new, whether it be pursuing neuroscience, whether it be pursuing behavioral patterns, whether it be pursuing an approach, a different approach, so as to be able to have somebody relate to what it is that I'm trying to get across, right? So I do these three things. Now, I'm not here to replace any medical professional at all. I do believe that if you watch the Uplift, or if you're part of the Uplift community, I believe that it'll enhance your relationships with your medical professionals. The reason why is because you'll see things for what they are. You'll also understand how it is that your system works, and you'll have different questions. When you have different questions, you'll have the opportunity for that medical professional to be optimal for you, because you'll make it easier for them in order to be able to help you. I do fully believe that. Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to see everybody. So I help the person while the professionals treat the patient. That's how it is that I look upon it. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Let's lock in. Familiarity. Okay. We've been talking about familiarity this week. And, one thing that I want to talk about today is our intentional choice. Our intentional choice. Listen, we have a lot of choices in life. And a lot of people, thank you so much, Jules, for the heart me. A lot of people, they find themselves waiting to have that big decision that they think that's going to make the difference in their life. They sit there and they wait and they go through the motions just waiting for those big decisions that's going to make a difference in their life. I fully believe that this is something that actually is missing the boat a little bit, because I fully believe that every decision that we make is important in our life. It's important in our life. Now, when I say our intentional choice, right? Our intentional choice. We learned yesterday that there is definitely a significant difference between the two paths, right? One is a survival path, the other is an intentional path, right? We learned that the survival path, obviously, the gatekeeper is the amygdala, right? That's the gatekeeper. That's always going to be the case. You're always going to have the emotion go to the gatekeeper first, right? It's almost as if, like, you've seen it on television when you have a mansion, in the background, and then there's this gate, and then you have a security guard. That gatekeeper is your amygdala. That thing is literally going to say, all right, what's the significance of this emotion that I'm having right now? John White, wonderful to see you. So it's going to figure out what's the significance of the emotion right now, and it's going to tag it, right? Now, if it's in survival mode, it's going to go to the gatekeeper, being the amygdala. The amygdala is then going to say, hey, I recognize something. There's something predictable here. There's something that's familiar. That last time that I've had this feeling, this is what occurred. And so what ends up happening is that the gatekeeper, being the amygdala, goes to your storage, which is your hippocampus, right? Sandra Shipley, wonderful to see you. So when you're sitting there and you have your storage there for the amygdala, it is to reinforce what the amygdala is feeling, what the amygdala is trying to get across, which is awareness, right? To have us ultimately aware of what it is that's going on. So literally, our storage area, I like it to almost like a Windows operating system. We all know what that is, right? Where you have a folder and you have subfolders. Well, the hippocampus is your storage area. Joe, wonderful to see you from New York. Okay, hey, yeah, you just mentioned something. Let me know where it is that you're watching from. Let me know where it is that you're watching from, whether it be the city or whether it be the state. Love to know, how far our community extends out there. I happen to be from New York myself. I happen to be from the central part of New York, which is Albany and Troy area. And I know Jules, Long Island, it's like I know a lot of people get that confused being New York and everything like that. It really is similar. But, at the same time, when we're talking about New York, we're not just talking about NYC, right? It's a big, big place. All right. So getting back to what it is that I'm saying here, when we're talking about what's familiar, you got to remember that our brain and our nervous system is looking at familiarity as being predictability. Mother of Jago, wonderful Sue. So familiarity is being predictability. In other words, the brain is predicting what it is that it is needing to survive from. It needs to survive from. Indy, wonderful to see you this morning. My Bella. She is actually from New York. So we've been talking about people who have been from New York. So that happens to be one of those things too. All right, so here it is. Our brain is really relying on familiarity being predictability. Predictability is then allowed to be able to then react in a survival sense. Now, we learned yesterday that it goes to the amygdala. The amygdala then comes to your storage area, which is your hippocampus. The hippocampus goes ahead and opens up all the folders. And when I say all the folders, I'm saying all the folders in your lifetime that had a significance in regards to this predictability of this familiarity field, right? So literally what's happening is that it opens up all the folders of your lifetime to then reinforce what the amygdala is trying to get across. Now, what this is where things kind of get really amped up, because then you have your ACC, your anterior cruciate cingulate. What this does is that it is there to regulate. In most cases, when things are going well, it's going to be there for you to calm things down, to take notice of things, yes, but not necessarily react. Still respond, still have the opportunity to respond, still have the opportunity in order, well, let's not just go too far here, right? So it literally regulates things. It decides, okay, this isn't as intense as what it is that you may think it is, right? But when you're in a survival mode, that is then overridden. That's then overridden. And then the ACC actually becomes an amplifier to where it's, picture yourself, at a stove, an old stove, and turning up the heat. That's literally what's happening here. So is to amplify it even more so, because the main purpose is to get awareness to us so that we're aware, ultimately aware of what it is that's going on, what it is that we're feeling, what's feeling familiar, what's being predicted. It ultimately is meant to do that. Now, here's the thing. When we're talking about it from the standpoint where we're not in survival mode, but we're in our intentional path, again, it's always going to go to the gatekeeper. You're always going to go to the gatekeeper. The amygdala is going to sit there and it's going to say, oh, wait a minute, you've got a plan, right? Because in our intentional path, that's having a plan, right? So it literally says, oh, you have a plan. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of significance right now. So let's go ahead and throw it back over to the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is where your plan begins, right? Immediately when you have a plan, you then are naturally awarded through the nuclei accumbens. This is where your serotonin and your dopamine comes into play, right? Immediately, you are rewarded for having a plan because you are enhancing what the capacity of the brain is doing. So it's literally going to reward you immediately, right? And then you have your basal ganglia. Now, your basal ganglia is going to work both ways because that's the loop. A lot of people call it the subconscious, right? Your subconscious is actually the subconscious process. There's no particular piece in the brain that's called the subconscious. It's a subconscious process. And so what that does is it literally learns patterns and then enforces those patterns, both in survival mode as well as intentional path. Okay? Intentional choice. So when you have that opportunity to go intentionally, you definitely want to take it. You definitely want to take it because this is now training your brain to know, hey, I'm in control. I've got this. I understand what's going on, right? How many of you have had the situation, it just happened recently, right? Especially during the holidays. You know, if you have a long weekend, right, that extends into Monday, how many of you literally wake up at the same time that you would do any weekday, even though that you had every intention of sleeping in? Go ahead and put blue hearts into the chat. How many of you have had a long weekend that extended into Monday, and you said the night before, you said, I get to go and sleep in. I get to sleep in and I don't have to worry about anything. I get to enjoy this holiday. So I get to sleep in, and you have every intention to sleep many hours past what it is that you normally would, right? And so you literally will sit there and believe that you're going to sleep in. Like you're tired. You even feel tired. So you feel like you need to sleep. And yet you wake up just as early, if not earlier, as what you would every other day. Same thing happens on a Saturday. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Why do you think that happens? Why do you think that happens? The reason why that occurs is because that is predictable. The reason why that occurs is because that is what's familiar. So your brain is sitting there predicting, hey, it's a Monday. You need to get up now. You need to get up now because you are going to be late for work. Lily, good morning. It's wonderful to see you. You're going to be late for work. You're going to be late for a program, whatever that is. It's immediately going to wake you up anyways. So you have every intention, right? You have every intention of sleeping in, and yet you get woken up just as early, if not earlier, than what it is that you do every weekday, right? Hey, Dutch, I hope you have been good. Haven't seen you in a long time. I'm back, babe. I'm back now. I'm feeling better. Things are definitely kind of like fitting in. I got a whole lot of things that are going to be surprising to hear in the near future, and I'm back. So I appreciate you. I did have some heart issues and so forth, so I did have to take some time away, but I am back now. So I appreciate you a great deal. Get ready. Okay, so based on what it is that I'm saying, Tommy Gunn, wonderful to see you this morning. Based on what it is that I'm saying, I want you to go ahead and put the word moment in the chat. Go ahead and put the word moment in the chat because this is where it is that you're going to recognize something of which you're now going to realize how things are going to work differently. Okay, this is where it is that you're going to recognize something to realize how things work differently. I'm so glad everything is working out. Such good news to hear after everything that has happened. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you. I really do. You're really going to love what it is that's coming up. I promise you. Go ahead and put the word moment, okay? Put the word moment because this is where you recognize in your everyday life, you just realize that, oh, yeah, when I want to go ahead and sleep in, for whatever reason, I wake up the same time as I always do in the morning, right? Everybody does it, okay? So that's the recognition, right? Recognition in everyday life. Here's the realization. Here's the realization. The realization of why it is that people are not making intentional choices is because of the exact same situation. The reason why people do not make intentional choices, the reason why people are constantly working out of their survival path rather than their intentional path is the exact same reason as you would in what we just recognized, waking up at the exact same hour when you meant to go and sleep later. It's because of the familiarity. It's because of the predictability. It's because your brain is going to trust what it knows in the familiar and the predictable rather than what it is that might be different because it is going to be reluctant to be different. You literally have to take the bull by the horns almost. Now, you don't have to fight it because I promise you that if you go ahead and start trying to fight your brain, you're going to have a very long day. You're going to have a very long day. So, what it is that you're doing is that you're taking the moment, right? Go ahead and put in the word moment in the chat. You're taking the moment to realize that you have a choice. You're taking the moment to realize that you have a choice. You're putting a disruptor in front of that systemic way that things are happening in the familiar and predictability and the survival path. You're putting a disruptor there, right? Now, you don't want to sit there and kind of like wrestle this damn thing. You don't. You want to be savvy. You want to look at it from the standpoint of, like I mentioned before, almost like a 3 or 4 year old that's going into a dangerous situation. Because if you go ahead and you say, no, don't go there. No, where are you going? Where are you going? You're just going to get their attention. But in the meantime, their little feet is still moving towards the wrong direction, right? You're going to get their attention, but they're not stopping. They're just going to continue on. So what you want to do is that you want to train your brain in a way that it is a friend. in a way that it is a confidant, in a way that it is someone that can benefit you, right? Because this is where it all begins. So you want to look at it from the standpoint. It's like, oh, come back over here. This is not all that important. This is not that all dangerous. We're good. I got this. Come back over here. I know where it is that you're going. I understand now. Marilyn, wonderful to see you. I understand now. I understand what the deeper reality is happening here. I see what it is that's happening. I see that you're going through the amygdala. I know that the amygdala is sitting there making the decision whether it needs to go to the hippocampus immediately or whether it needs to go to the prefrontal cortex. I see that, right? And now that I see it, I can literally say, come over here, come over here. This is not that big of a deal. And in fact, you can actually say, you know what? Come over here because I'm going to make the choice now. I got this. I don't have to go into my survival path. I can choose to go in my intentional path. I can choose in that intentional choice to go a different way, right? Now, the thing that's so cool about the hippocampus is that it's a storage of everything. So it not only is going to support the amygdala, but it also is going to support the intentional path. Because we've all had opportunities in order to succeed. We've all had opportunities in order to feel fulfilled. We've all had opportunities to have excitement. We've all had opportunities to have joy. We've all had these opportunities, no matter what type of life that you've gone through. And so, literally, the hippocampus has a whole lot to go ahead and enforce what it is that that intentional choice is doing. So now you're not only going to be rewarded for it, but you're going to be actually encouraged by it. You're going to be empowered through it, and where you literally are going to have an entirely different scenario than what you would in the survival path. Your intentional choice is going to be supported. You just need to be able to see that you have that choice, right? Michelle, wonderful to see you. So you have to be able to see that you have that choice. And when you notice that, all of a sudden things become different. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying that you're never going to use the familiar path again. I'm not saying that at all. What it is that I'm saying is that you're going to be able to know that the familiar path will take your choice if you choose not to. The familiar path will take your choice if you choose not to. All right? So it really is all up to you. That's why I end the show when it comes to the uplift. I always say the choice is yours now. Christine, wonderful to see you this morning. The choice is yours now. The reason why that is because the choice is yours. The familiar path, the predictable path, will take your choice if you choose not to. Okay? So we need to be aware of that. All right? And so listen, take today's moment with you. All right? Because I fully believe the more that we see, the more intentional we can be. But the choice is yours now. And that's the uplift. Real growth, clear direction, expanding the possibilities for you.